apologize for being limping around a little bit. This program is not about me, so I got to be careful talking about some of these things. But I might just let you know I did have a artificial knee put in a year or so ago. Doing pretty well. Everybody thought it was a rhinoceros that got me, or alligator, but it was actually playing football in the 50s. Some of those football players can hardly get out of their limo to go into the hotel. But mine has been pretty successful. It's been so successful that I'm thinking seriously about getting a brain transplant. I don't know whether to transplant the brain or the body, but it's a pleasure for me to come here and talk a little bit about Don Hartzell and his incredible event that he's been. You talk about a guy that sticks to it. He's the one. Don, you've been working on the World Sky Race for what, 2 or 3 years at least?
Well, at least. I thought of this idea in 1976.
Yeah.
And I just simply daydreamed about it for 30 years. And then thereafter it was like, time to do it.
Well, you must have gotten the same disease that I got in a liberal arts college in Indiana. My disease was that nobody told me what I couldn't do. So you must have gotten the same one, but it's great to see a nice audience here and people from Anchorage, which is, I think Anchorage is an example of America. By the way, I'm not going to be running for politics, although I was thinking, somebody once told me I could take a little animal, baby, and kiss it and run for the governor of California. I don't think I'm going to do that. If you think my working with animals is dangerous, some of the politics around, I notice, are pretty dangerous. By the way, I usually speak, people ask me to come speak, and then they say, by the way, bring your animals. They don't want me at all. They want to see the animals. So I've used those. I apologize for not, I don't think I've got any snake in my pocket or anything like that. Johnny Carson used to always worry about bulges in my pocket. But I want to congratulate Don. He's going to tell you more about the race. I want to talk a little bit more in general terms about the fact that I think America needs to recapture some of the enthusiasm and the dreams that we had. For example, when I got out of the chute back in the 50s, you could dream, and we had the possibilities of following our desires and our skills, and I hope we always are able to do that. I usually get an applause when I say that nobody told me what I couldn't do, and that's the way it was in the 50s, and I hope America's always that way. I don't need to tell you all up here any of that, because a lot of you had the imagination and the enthusiasm to come up here and create a life. But anyway, I want to say a couple of words. I've learned not to talk too long. I can spot people that go to sleep pretty quickly. But I want to tell you that we have got to preserve the challenges that are facing us in this world. And we have to also follow our dreams. Don Hartzell has done that. We need to all get behind him, because it's a tough thing he's trying to do. I've known Don for a while, and the guy, I don't know how he's done it, but he's been around the world mapping and developing a trail. It's symbolic of what a lot of us do. We build trails as we go through life, but he's building a trail through some enemy territory, among other things. He's had to go around and get permission all over the world to use the airspace. And what he's actually working at is something that quite unique. I'm sure in years past we've had races on sea and races with jets and everything else. We are a country that knows what it is to take a challenge. But I want to congratulate him. He needs a lot of support and a lot of people that believe in him, which there are already. I've been following I'm one of the consultants, consulting director, and I hope I can help you. By the way, Don, I was going to bring a bicycle pump with me today in case you had something outside, but I also knew that there's some explorers. How many people from the Explorers Club are here? Well, you know, I knew that if they were here, there's going to be so much hot air, we don't need a bicycle pump, you know. And, I want to know what's going to happen if you get you're flying over certain parts of the world and somebody's down there, you know, with a BB gun. Are there double layers in a dirigible so you don't have to worry about that?
Basically, an airship, its pressure inside the envelope is not that different than the exterior atmosphere.
Oh, really?
And so the outgassing part of it is literally measured in hours.
Wow.
And so if somebody were to put a hole in it, it's going to make it a few more 1,000 miles before you really worry about it. It'd take a big hole. It would take a hole probably larger than, well, a third of this room.
Now, and how many days do you think it'll take to go around?
In a perfect world, we could do this race in 25 days with perfect weather.
Really?
But we're planning on this race being 180 days around the world.
Okay, that's a good.
So that way we have a proper celebration aspect to this.
Well, I won't ask too many more questions because I'm sure there are people here want to find out, but I do want to find out what altitude are they going to be flying at?
We're going to limit them typically to about 2,000 feet above sea level. And the reason is that it's all about publicity, it's all about branding, it's all about visibility. And at that level, on a clear day, if you're looking at it 6 miles that way or 6 miles that way, it can be seen. And it can be understandably seen if you know what you're looking at. And so that swath of 12 miles takes in an amazing landscape.
Wonderful. Well, Alaska knows a lot about challenges. You know, we had a couple of our explorers raced up to the North Pole, and there's a little dissension among the troops about who really got there and who didn't. But so I'm sure Alaska has been very familiar to some of these challenges. But anyway, I have flown a little bit myself, but I've also been up here in Alaska. I just want to tell one more story before you hook me off the stage. But no, I've done quite a few things up here. So how many of you remember Marlin Perkins? Does everybody, a lot of people do it? Isn't that great? Well, you know, he was quite a guy, and I got to tell you a couple of stories that in some way relate, because I was up here in Tok, Alaska once, and we were following a grizzly bear named Leroy that had been tagged with a radio tracking device. And I was in a Super Cub flying around trying to pick up his signal. And then we were working with the Department of Fish and Game. And finally, when we knew roughly where he was, we came out with a couple of helicopters and filmed and tried to track Leroy. But you know, you're full of, Alaska's full of a lot of exciting things to do. So we did probably 6 or 7 half-hour films up here in Alaska on different subjects. But Leroy was special. I don't know how many of you have been out. You know probably a little bit about the habits of wolves and grizzlies. But in the spring like that, Leroy had not been very kind to his fellow bears. They had followed Leroy. He had killed and eaten a sow grizzly and her cubs. You know, a lot of people, animal rights types, think that the natural world is some kind of a playground where animals are frolicking around. I think you know up here that the main things going on, they're fighting, killing, and eating each other. It's not, from a human standpoint, all that pleasant. But anyway, Leroy killed a moose. They killed several moose in a fairly short time. And the way, of course, you tell the difference between a wolf kill and a moose kill, the wolf usually come in from the backside and bites around the legs and then starts working on the backside. The grizzly will usually go up on the neck somewhere and bite the neck. And one of the reasons it's a deadly thing to be bitten is that we humans, in fact, are horrified by the idea of being bitten or clawed for a good reason. When an animal's bitten or clawed, it goes into shock. It may be nature's way of cushioning death. But anyway, that moose had been killed, and then Leroy had covered him up with brush. And we went over with a helicopter and landed and went over and started checking the moose out and measuring and determining what killed it. But the guy that was with us, who was our armed guard with a rifle, I didn't know it, but the guy was partly deaf from shooting the gun. And all of a sudden I heard this clacking of teeth coming down over the mountain. And here was Leroy in a full charge. He thought we were stealing his carcass. And my armed guard couldn't hear Leroy, which was, I found out in the process. So I very quickly checked my Mutual of Omaha insurance policy. And yeah, isn't that embarrassing? But anyway, he finally returned him, and he disappeared. But we went ahead and finished the project, and then the two helicopters got together and they went up and took off. We didn't know that the one that took off had a bad radio. So after it disappeared, we started to start up our helicopter and it wouldn't start. So if you can imagine, we had to stay there all night. We sent out a distress signal, and you know the Americans never got it, but Russia 3 days later reported them missing. Tells you something, doesn't it? Yeah. So anyway, that night was very interesting. I've had a few pretty interesting evenings in my life, but that night was special. I got a little hungry. We were all in the helicopter, and I decided to go out and cut a steak off the moose, and light a fire, and cook dinner. So in the process of herding dinner, I heard that familiar sound of the teeth clacking. Leroy was coming down a mountain at us. So guess who forgot all about the steak? And I got back in the helicopter, and so we had a radio collar on him, tracking him, and that son of a gun was running around us all night long. So it was quite an evening. Anyway, some of you probably have great stories about grizzlies. But you're going to have an adventure. You're going to have a lot of things that happen. And I know you've been in so many countries already paving the way. But it's really fascinating. Do you have a question?
I was just wondering if you have any polar bear stories.
Any what one?
Any polar bear stories.
Oh, how did you know? Oh. Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. Do I have another minute or two?
You do. You do. I mean,
well,
I mean, first of all, we're here to listen.
See, you're going to be able to see at that altitude. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. If you're looking up, you can see a bald eagle at about 5,000 feet. Looking down, you're going to be able to see some of the wildlife yourself. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, polar bear. Let me tell you what's really going on. The media are out there to sell things and make money, and they are carrying it so far. Various misconceptions we have about the natural world. It's astonishing how they're programming people more than ever to be afraid of animals. I'm here to tell you there are only 3 animals in the world, and I've worked with all of them, who will have us for lunch without being provoked. I'm not counting the things in New York City, but they're really wild. And some of you may know what those animals are. One is the saltwater crocodile in Australia, Northern Australia, New Guinea. Don't even put your foot in the water. They have no compunction about it. There's a couple of sharks. There's no question whether they think we're sea lions or not, the white shark and the tiger shark. But of all things, the worst is the polar bear. I was put in a cage once up in Saskatchewan to do a test. I was the bait. And they were going to film me because the wildlife department up there were trying to figure out how to deter a bear if it came around your camp. They were using rubber bullets, and they were using a bullet called a screamer. when the bear comes, they shoot it at the bear, but if it goes over the other side of the bear, we found out the bear will turn around and run right towards you to get away from it. That didn't work. The only thing that really worked was pepper spray, in case any of you are going to work with polar bears. But anyway, I'll never forget it. This bear came up. I was inside of a steel cage with bars, and I noticed one of the bars had been broken, which didn't give me a whole lot of comfort. But anyway, the bear came up to me, looked at me, and the thing that I didn't like, he never changed expression. He was going to eat me as if it was just a matter of fact. I don't like that. If an animal's going to eat you, they ought to at least smile or, you know, sharpen their teeth or something. But polar bears, it's such a matter-of-fact thing. They're eating machines, and of course, certain times of year, can you imagine a predator like that in total darkness moving around? Anything that's moving, they're going to go after it. So be careful about polar bears. They're one of probably the most aggressive. The bear knocked my cage over. It was being filmed, and they stood up. Bears like to stand up tall. Polar bear almost reached the ceiling here and come down and crash on it, knocked me over, but I was still pretty comfortable because, well, fear is a lack of knowledge. So I've gotten through pretty well. I think, I don't know if I just mentioned, maybe I did, but Johnny Carson used to say that I was the only guy that Marlin Perkins could find who was dumb enough to do what he said to do. But anyway, I'd had experience. I was working out of knowledge, not out of fear. But polar bears are something really special. I love polar bears, but you got to be careful with them. Any other questions?
Could you tell us a little bit about the bars on the cage you were in?
Yes. Well, it was a sort of an old cage, and National Geographic had it up there filming, and they're using it as a place to put the cameramen inside. But my people thought it would be good to put me in it and see what a bear would do. But there were bars, maybe I'd say a little over a half-inch thick. They were strong enough. But I knew pretty much what was going to happen. And anybody been to Churchill? Oh yeah, that's pretty exciting up in Churchill. But they have had bears try to get in the window of the truck, the snow truck that they have up there. Anyway, but my philosophy, and I'll end this by saying it, it's just like a bit of like a sky race. There are some risks you take, but it's the goal in the long run that counts. And I've changed. I've changed from somebody that showed animals to people. I mean, I'm going to relate this to the sky race. Don't worry, Don. He has some philosophical challenge also. The reason that he's doing the sky race, it's going to involve education. It's going to involve geology. It's going to be followed by school kids all over the world. But I've evolved from somebody that shows animals as a zoologist, to somebody who wants to communicate with the public about why the natural world, not just animals, but why is the natural world important to human welfare? That's what's missing in our world today. We have made a mistake by our conservation groups loading us down with information, but education is a little bit different. And we have got to start relating our wonderful world of nature. You people up here probably already have a lot of reasons to save some of the natural world. But we've got to relate it to what's in it for humans. So that I've turned into somebody who's a communicator, and I like to communicate these things as I had been till recently the honorary chairman of the Explorers Club. But I'm trying to get the Explorers Club to realize that their challenge is to develop curiosity and discovery, but also to link that with somehow with human welfare, promoting people that go out and explore. Okay, well, Don, congratulations. I want to introduce my buddy up here. He is a buddy, and his name is Buddy. And he's one of the leading sculptors in America. He's done sculptures for the king and the queens and all kinds of people. I hate to mention it, buddy, but I got to tell him you did the Neverland Ranch sculptures for Michael Jackson.
That's all right.
For which anybody want to purchase some of those? They're available now. Yeah, but buddies sort of came up here with me from the Explorers Club, and but I just want everybody to know that just like Don, I'm just getting started. I have been called, you know, one of the administrative people in the Explorers Club said they got to get rid of the older explorers, start getting younger people in there. They're not going to get rid of me, I guarantee you. But I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started, and the challenges are so great. And I mean, you still have a frontier up here, and he has a frontier, and I have a frontier. I sometimes liken myself to an old pine tree. Have you ever seen one just before it falls over? Now, I'm not going to fall over, don't get me wrong. I've got a pine tree, has so many pine cones just before it falls over. Ladies and gentlemen, I have too many pine cones. I've got to shed some of them, but you do too, Don. So thank you very much, and let's all get behind Don.
I'm gonna grab some myself.
I had wine back here.